evening. I'm Zinklea Samwa, coming to you from NBC News World Headquarters in New York City. Here are some of the stories we're following on Now Tonight. Twisted plot. Failed New Mexico State House candidate is accused of conspiring to carry out attacks on 2 county commissioners and 2 state legislators. The wild details from court documents you just gotta hear.
He also came to my front door after elections, pretty aggressive.
Groundbreaking medicine. The new Alzheimer's drug begins to be administered, but it doesn't come without costs. Very, very steep costs. And cross-country storm. California is mopping up after being hit by storm after storm, but now Mother Nature's wrath is heading east. We've got your forecast. Plus 70 years of the Corvette. The classic car celebrates with a new jolt to its brand.
What has made this car stand out for so many years, for so many people?
Yeah, it's such an iconic portfolio.
We're starting with a one-time Republican candidate in New Mexico who refused to accept his election loss. He's now been arrested for allegedly coordinating a string of shootings aimed at Democratic state officials. 39-year-old Solomon Pena lost his election back in November. Then, according to Albuquerque police, paid 4 other men to shoot at these Democrats' homes. Police say the first shooting happened December 4th, the next one December 8th, then a third one 3 days later on the 11th. Then came a shooting in early January, in which 3 bullets entered a state representative's 10-year-old daughter's bedroom while she slept. After more than a month of investigating, Albuquerque police arrested Pena yesterday. He's accused of being the mastermind in these shootings, and police say in one case he even fired a weapon. NBC News exclusively reported today that Pena also allegedly visited these homes before the shootings.
He also came to my front door after elections, pretty aggressive. I didn't feel threatened necessarily at the time, but he was speaking a little erratic and pretty aggressive. So he had come to our homes, which is not common, even though our addresses are publicized as elected officials. But yeah, he came to my front door and that of other county commissioners as well, right after the election.
Disturbing details there. And Elise Kaplan is a criminal justice reporter for the Albuquerque Journal. She joins us now. Elise, thanks for being here. So what can you tell us about the suspect himself?
Yeah, he's a Republican. He's a registered Republican who ran for the House District 14 seat in the last election. He did lose that by about 3,600 votes. We spent the whole day trying to learn more about him. He graduated from the University of New Mexico with a political science degree. He was at one time in prison for about 8 years in a kind of shoplifting, like smash and grab scheme, they call it. And he's had like a number of jobs kind of here and there. Yeah, just kind of it sounds like believes the election was rigged and that he didn't actually lose, like the results say.
Absolutely, and kind of a disturbing outcome from election denialism. And Elise, I also want to, of course, center the victims and the survivors of these shootings. What can you tell us about them?
Yeah, they're the 2 county commissioners and 2 state legislators. And of course, no one was hurt in this, but it is very scary. The legislators that we've been talking to and the county commissioners just say that this, it really struck fear into them and their families. And Commissioner Adrienne Barboa said her daughter was afraid to bring her grandkid around for fear that something else like this could happen. And then, of course, the scariest one where a bullet was actually shot into the bedroom of Linda Lopez's 10-year-old daughter. As she slept, she actually felt the sheetrock kind of rain down on her face and didn't realize until later that that's what that is. So it's, of course, very, very scary for these victims.
I mean, incredibly scary. And given the nature of the crimes, right, a shooting, someone could have been killed. And I imagine that's quite frightening for residents and the lawmakers, even without a death. So how has this impacted the community where you are?
Yeah, I think we hear lots of politicians talking about, that this isn't normal, that we shouldn't be asking elected officials to kind of put up with this kind of violence. In the meantime, the state legislator has taken down home addresses off of their website for legislators. Previously, that was available, but now they're doing that as a precaution. And people are just kind of urging to kind of tone down the temperature kind of across the board, since it is such a scary situation for people who have chosen to serve democracy and serve their community in this way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Should not be the norm for our lawmakers. Elise Kaplan from the Albuquerque Journal, thank you so much. Now let's bring in NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos to talk about this. Danny, I want to talk about the charges. What specifically could the suspect face?
Shooting at a dwelling, shooting from an open vehicle, criminal conspiracy, even aggravated assault, as defined in most states, doesn't require actual contact or hitting somebody, but the apprehension that you're about to get hurt by whether it be a bullet, a fist, or whatever the case may be. And arguably, a creative prosecutor could stick an an attempted murder charge on these shooters. I don't see why not. Shooting at a dwelling is, and as you've seen reportedly, it went through a child's wall. So, I mean, this is the kind of thing that, depending on what the prosecution wants to charge, they have a host of different options here.
And Danny, I wonder, does Pena's criminal history have any role in how this might play out in court?
Yes, if he's convicted, when it comes to sentencing, most states and the federal system will consider your prior record score. In other words, if you have prior felonies, usually not misdemeanors and not speeding tickets, but prior felonies will count towards your prior record score. And repeat felons can expect to get on the highest end of whether the state uses sentencing guidelines or even the statutory maximum, because each felony will have its own maximum penalty. If you have a prior record, those are the people who get close to the maximum, not first-time offenders.
And one of the most disturbing details in this is that Pena allegedly visited the homes before these shootings were carried out. What role might that play in this case?
That is coming in as evidence of premeditation, evidence that this wasn't a mistake, evidence that he was involved, even if he wasn't present for some of the shootings, that he's going and casing the joint. I mean, my goodness, often casing the joint is driving by or even looking at it on Google Images or something like that, not going up to the door and knocking on it and actually speaking to your victim. I mean, that would be a really stupid thing to do if you're trying to evade capture. And that's the kind of evidence prosecutors love. They'll put it in front of a jury, and the jury will get enraged.
And to that end, right, going up to the door, that's a bold move. Could this constitute political intimidation? Is there a federal case there, given that we're talking about elected lawmakers and someone who lost his election?
Yeah, it's interesting. The federal laws mostly deal with federal elections and intimidation primarily of voters, not already elected officials. But when they do cover those elected officials, it's federal elected officials. So you'd really have to scour the U.S. code for a crime. But there are crimes that very broadly relate to transmitting a threat interstate. Anything interstate is usually going to have a federal hook in it, because anything interstate brings into the jurisdiction of the federal government. So some of those broader statutes, assaults, threats, intimidation, that are communicated over state lines, the federal government could get involved.
A lot to watch here.
Oh, a lot.
Danny Savalos, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And President Biden is not saying much about the classified material found in his home and former office. But the White House is insisting the president is, quote, fully cooperating with the Justice Department's investigation into his handling of those documents. But that doesn't seem to matter much to House Republicans, who are also conducting their own investigation. Today, Republican Congressman Mike Johnson, a member of the House Judiciary Committee, told Fox News that he is determined to find visitor logs for Biden's Delaware home, despite the White House saying that no such thing exists.
There are a lot of questions that I believe our Select Committee and certainly on my House Judiciary Committee are going to go after. The logs and who visited that house are critically important. If they didn't write it down anywhere, Neil, we're going to have to seek those answers some other way. We may have to subpoena members of the Biden family and others who may have worked at the residence to find out who was there. Why? Because we had critical, very highly sensitive, classified information there. And among the people who listed that as a residence, by the way, is Hunter Biden himself in recent years.
Joining us now is Chief White House Correspondent Peter Alexander. Peter, let's just jump in here. The White House held a press conference and a conference call today with reporters. What exactly did you learn from that call?
Well, we can talk about what we didn't learn from that call. We didn't get any better information about exactly how many classified documents have been discovered by the president's lawyers. We don't know who had access to them. And we also don't know one question that gets to the heart of the issue of transparency, which is why the White House waited for more than 2 months to reveal the initial discovery of classified documents before the midterms. The White House did try to use this call as an effort to go on offense, accusing Republicans of faking outrage engage in this case, given their muted response when Mr. Trump took hundreds of classified documents before. They also said that there is a tension between sort of cooperating with an investigation, trying to maintain the integrity of that investigation, while at the same time trying to provide appropriate answers to questions about the case. But it's notable, Zincle, that a law enforcement official tonight tells NBC News that the Justice Department at no point has told the White House that it cannot answer questions about the facts of this case. Zincle?
That's an important distinction. And Peter, this is a unique time in Washington, right? Former President Trump being investigated for possession of classified documents. Now we're seeing this with President Biden. What is the status of these different investigations, both the special counsel's investigations and the House GOP's?
Well, as it relates to the president right now, President Biden, we know there is a special counsel, Rob Hur, who was recently tapped to be in charge of this investigation, basically to see if there was any criminal activity, any criminal responsibility here in this case. Hur takes things over. He is a U.S. attorney, former U.S. attorney from Maryland, who had been in the past appointed by former President Trump. On the House GOP side, the House Republican, with their leadership now in the Oversight Committee, they are trying to get access to, among other things, visitor logs from President Biden's home in Delaware. Notably, the White House and the Secret Service both say that they have no visitor logs from that private residence. The White House says that that's been the case for years, that they do not have visitor logs that indicate who comes and goes from a president's private residence. Zincle?
A lot to follow. You're keeping us posted on it all. Peter Alexander, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Also tonight, House Republicans are revealing key committee assignments, including who will investigate President Biden and updated assignments for embattled New York Congressman George Santos. Our Ryan Nobles is on the Hill with the latest. Ryan, good to see you. So let's start with the Judiciary Committee. Who exactly has been appointed, and what are they saying about the president so far?
Yeah, well, Zincle, the Judiciary Committee is going to be a very powerful committee that's going to be among the many House committees that are going to be responsible for investigating the Biden administration. And we do know that there's going to be a new subcommittee of the Judiciary Committee that's specifically going to look into what Republicans are calling the weaponization of government. But the new names added to the Judiciary Committee are interesting. Among them, Congressman Troy Nehls of Texas, a former county sheriff, someone that was originally assigned to the January 6th Select Committee by Kevin McCarthy. But then was removed after Nancy Pelosi removed some of the Republican members from the January 6th Select Committee. You may remember that from not too long ago. Another name, Harriet Hageman, who is, of course, the newly elected representative from Wyoming, who took Liz Cheney's place in Congress. She's going to sit on the Judiciary Committee. And another name is Wesley Hunt. You may remember him during all this speaker drama because he had actually was forced to leave after his baby was born prematurely and then rushed back to cast a ballot in favor of Kevin McCarthy in the speaker's race. He among the new names added to the Judiciary Committee, which is going to have a very busy calendar here during this Congress.
Absolutely, no shortage of names. I covered Wesley Hunt as one of the few black Republicans on the ticket this past cycle. And of course, Ryan, we got to talk about the controversial Congressman George Santos, now confirmed for 2 committees while also facing a possible investigation by House Republicans. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, he was among the last batch of members of Congress assigned to committees here as the steering committee met over the past couple of days. And he was assigned to the Small Business Committee and the Space, Science, and Technology Committees. And I caught up briefly with the House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, who said that they basically were sticking with protocol and that all Republican members who aren't assigned to A committees, which are the most high-profile and powerful committees, are given 2 committee assignments. And that's why George Santos was named to 2 committees. While these are not A committees, they're still important. Small business impacts millions of Americans. Their policy proposals will be very important. And of course, the Space, Science, and Technology Committee plays a big role with a number of important issues here. And George Santos is clearly going to get the opportunity to contribute as a member of Congress while all these investigations swirling around him are conducted, many of them behind closed doors. The House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, making it clear until these issues are adjudicated, he's going to be able to serve as a member of Congress as the people of Long Island sent him here to Washington to do.
Definitely, Congressman, we're watching closely. Ryan Nobles in Washington. Thank you.
Thank you.
And up next, the health headlines we're watching tonight, including an Alzheimer's drug with some pretty promising results. But the massive price tag might mean it's not for everyone who wants it. Now, tonight is just getting started. Welcome back. I'm Zinklea Samwa. Let's take a look at some of the medical news making waves tonight. A new study found that pregnant people infected with COVID are 7 times more likely to die compared to those who are not infected. They're also having a greater risk of ending up on a ventilator and a greater risk of being admitted to an intensive care unit. The study analyzed data from 12 different countries and included over 13,000 pregnant women. Also, the new FDA-approved drug Leqembi shows promise in slowing the progression of Alzheimer's disease. It's a sign of hope for the 6.5 million Americans impacted by the disease. But the drug will cost over $26,000 a year. This is raising concerns around health equity and accessibility. Dr. Kavita Desai is a pharmacist and the founder of Revival, and she joins us now to talk about this. Doctor, thank you so much for being here. So first, what can you tell us about Leqembi and how it's supposed to help slow down the progression of Alzheimer's?
Yeah, so it's part of a class of medications called monoclonal antibodies, and they're made to target very specific cells in the body. In this case, it's the amyloid plaques that are associated with Alzheimer's. So by helping to clear some of those plaques, it showed some promise in slowing the progression of Alzheimer's.
And so to that end, do you think this is a promising drug? And I think more importantly, a lot of viewers are wondering, would you recommend it as a doctor?
As a clinician and as somebody whose mother actually had early onset Alzheimer's and passed away during COVID, I'm still hesitant. I feel like we are addressing Alzheimer's from the point of view of the amyloid plaque. Numerous medications have already failed in stopping Alzheimer's, and I feel that medication should be stopping the progression of it, not just slowing it down. And in the case of this medication, yes, it showed some promise, but again, it was only an 18-month study. We need to see it out in the population, see how it does over time. We don't know how long patients would need to take it to actually see a larger regression in their disease. And if this was my mom and I was choosing for her, it's an onerous task for a caregiver to sign up for this. It's not only very expensive, as you mentioned, but it is an IV medication, which means it cannot be administered at home. So the patient would have to go in every 2 weeks to have this administered. And then there's some serious side effects like brain bleeds and brain swelling, which has to be monitored. And if you have a parent or loved one who has Alzheimer's, that's also very scary for them. They may not always understand what's going on. So I'm hesitant to be fully optimistic yet.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to hear about your mother, but it's true. It's a controversial drug and one with risks that people need to consider. And I also wanted to mention Chris Hemsworth recently. He shared that he's actually genetically predisposed to Alzheimer's disease, and he actually sat down with NBC's Willie Geist to share his thoughts.
It was a real shock. And to all of a sudden be told, oh, this may be the thing that might take you out was like, whoa. But became a wonderful motivator to make changes and pay attention to my sleep habits and my stress management.
And Chris is kind of universally known as the strong man, right? And when we hear about experiences like this, it often reminds us how no one, even a celebrity, is immune. So what can we do to reduce our risk of Alzheimer's?
Yeah, and you know, just because you have the gene doesn't mean you will get it. If you don't have the gene, doesn't mean you won't. We don't actually know the full reason that Alzheimer's exists, but we do know that there's lots of risk factors that we can be addressing, and that's cleaning up our diet, getting rid of processed foods and high glycemic foods. It's limiting the number of toxins we expose ourselves to, whether it's cleaning supplies, in our makeup, in our environment. It's also improving our gut microbiomes. So we need a healthy gut for our brain to function at 100%. We need to improve our vitamin D levels, which is associated with a lot of disease risk, improve sleep, as Chris Hemsworth mentioned, and reduce stress. Anything that can harm the brain, we need to be thinking about that long-term, because it's good for our body and our long-term disease risk.
And so encouraging to hear you as a doctor talk about that, right? Holistic health is so key in fighting so many of these diseases. Dr. Kavita Desai, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And after the break, more of the top stories we're following this hour, including a water crisis in Arizona, why Scottsdale cut off access to a neighboring suburb. Plus, the storms may be gone, but the nightmare is far from over, how California is cleaning up. And 70 years on the road, our feature report on the evolution of the iconic Corvette. That's all just ahead. It's time now for some of the big headlines we're watching on Now Tonight. A weapon was found in checked luggage at the San Antonio International Airport. It was declared with the airline, but no one notified TSA. The agency tweeted a photo of the 84-millimeter caliber weapon. They used the opportunity to remind travelers to check their weapons with the air carrier or risk facing fines or legal troubles. Jury selection started today in an investor lawsuit against Elon Musk. They will hear allegations that Musk cheated Tesla investors by claiming in a 2018 tweet that he had lined up financing that would take Tesla private. The tweet caused the automaker's stock to drastically swing up, then down. Ukraine's First Lady is urging for a greater international effort to combat Russian aggression. Elena Zelenska pressed leaders at the World Economic Forum in Switzerland ahead of the war's first-year anniversary. With the war responsible for expanding food insecurity in developing nations, she called it an insult to mankind and human nature to have mass starvation. Harvard Medical School dropped out of the U.S. News rankings. The school's dean announced today that they would no longer participate in providing data. The decision comes as prominent law schools have been rejecting the ranking system in recent weeks. And Brittany Griner made her first public appearance since her release at an MLK Day event. The WNBA star commemorated King with her wife in downtown Phoenix. She told local media she was happy to be home. As California begins to dry out from the whiplash of consecutive downpours, Colorado is bracing for impact. That same storm system is moving east and bringing wet weather with it. Right now, the Rockies are getting dumped on with heavy snow, and that could soon move into the northern plains by tomorrow. Joining me now is NBC News meteorologist Angie Lassman. Angie, thank you so much for being here. So what exactly should we be expecting?
We should be expecting a coast-to-coast storm. What started on the west coast in California is going to continue to move east over the coming days. And as you said, already impacting folks in places like Colorado, where as we get through the next day or so, we'll see upwards of 1 foot to 2 feet of snow in some of those higher elevations. This is going to cause travel trouble for folks in that area in the Four Corners region here over the next maybe 12 hours or so. But the storm continues tracking to the east. Here's how it plays out. We see this system that extends basically from the Gulf of Mexico all the way up into the high plains, and with it come numerous impacts. So we have the heavy snow that we'll see centered into those high plains and even stretching into parts of the Midwest. We'll also deal with the ice accumulations from some of that freezing rain. And then we have a whole lot of rain that we're going to see stretching from basically Chicago all the way down to, again, the Gulf Coast. We will look for the potential for some strong to even severe storms with that system, but then it's not done just yet. It keeps on going, as I said, coast to coast. So by the time we get into Thursday, we'll see this system moving offshore, but still bringing some impacts that include some still wintry weather around the Great Lakes region and some rain and even snow and a wintry mix for folks in the mid-Atlantic. It'll finally move offshore here as we get into the weekend. But how about those snowfall accumulations? They extend again from parts of Colorado where we could see upwards of 1 foot to 2 feet, but then all the way basically into the Midwest where we'll see maybe 6 to 9 inches of widespread snowfall for some locations. And on top of that, travel trouble with the ice accumulations. But this is the bullseye of the severe weather threat. We'll see that impacting us here basically tomorrow afternoon into the evening hours. These are some of the same areas that were impacted by strong to severe storms last week. Tupelo, Memphis, Jackson, Alexandria, all included in that. And those main hazards, the gusty winds, we will still have the potential for some hail as well as some isolated tornadoes. So those are all things we're going to have to watch. And of course, we can't talk about the weather without talking about one more storm system that's going to work on shore for folks on the West Coast. The good news with this systems in Clay is that we're actually going to see most of it focused up into portions of the Pacific Northwest. So Oregon and Washington and northern parts of California are going to still see some rain, but the southern portions of California, they're not going to get in on this action. It'll eventually dry out before it makes it there, but we'll still have impactful weather for, again, the West Coast, which, by the way, San Francisco, they've already reached well above average for the amount of rain for this time of year. Even if it didn't rain another inch, they'll already be above average by the time the year ends.
I mean, enough to end their drought, right?
Yeah, in some places.
Pretty impressive levels. Angie Lassman, thank you so much. And in California, residents can finally breathe a sigh of relief. After more than 2.5 whole weeks, the severe storms there have finally stopped. The damage is incalculable. At least 20 people are dead, and critical infrastructure could cost up to $1 billion to repair, and tens of thousands have been forced to flee their homes. On Thursday, President Biden will pay a visit to see the devastation firsthand. He'll also assess whether any additional federal support is needed. Joining us now live from Santa Cruz is NBC senior national correspondent Jay Gray. Jay, it's good to see you out there. So what are you hearing from homeowners and business owners who've been hit so hard?
Zinkley, I think we're hearing a huge sigh of relief right now and an appreciation for what a California day looks like. They'd forgotten about that. Blue skies, sunshine today, and it allowed these teams to get in and really get some work done. You're seeing the power crews just for the Central Coast region. They're staging in what used to be a drive-in movie theater and have been over the last 3 weeks, and really just working around the clock. We're going to give you a sneak peek at their command center, at their base camp here, and kind of show you how the operations work. But you asked about the residents and the business owners. What I can tell you is they understand that while this is all stopped and it looks like they're going to be dry for several weeks here, it's really just the beginning of the recovery. And that recovery can't start until the power is restored for so many people, so many businesses. And so that's what these teams are doing. During the span of these storms, they have returned power to nearly 3 million customers. Now, look, some of those lost power several times, and what they will tell you, what these crews say, is that they would get the power down to maybe 1,000 people without electricity, and then a storm would move through, and it'd be back up to 40, 50,000 without electricity. And they rode that roller coaster for the better part of 3 weeks, and now looking forward to sustained good weather to kind of try and get things moving here.
I'm sure they're so eager for that sustained good weather you're talking about. And thank you, Jay, for showing us all that, the scope of the issue and how much resources and how many people are needed to address it. And I know where you are in Santa Cruz County is one of the counties eligible to actually receive federal aid. So where do you anticipate those funds going? Where is the need the highest?
Look, when you talk to a lot of people, what they will tell you is infrastructure, that they've got bridges that are compromised, that they've got roadways that are just torn away, and then they've got buildings that are structurally questionable. So they're working on trying to figure out exactly what needs to be done, how to repair a lot of that, and to get that done. Realize that, too, is going to take some time. So it's going to change a way of life for a lot of folks in this area because they won't be able to take the same roads. They may have to take a detour around to get to their homes, to get to work. And so they're beginning to understand that while this has been a long storm process, it really can't match the length of time it's going to take to try and get back to some type of normalcy.
Recovery will take some time. Jake Gray, thank you so much, and thanks to your crew for your important work. And an Arizona community is finding out the hard way that the water it's relied on for years is not a guarantee. Earlier this month, Scottsdale cut off the supply to its neighboring suburb of Rio Verde. Now, folks there are grappling with a new reality, conserving water any way they can. Here's NBC's Gotti Schwartz.
Just outside Scottsdale, Arizona, the Rhyme family is getting ready for the day.
Did you get your homework done?
And with the routine, now comes a new stress over every single drop of water they use.
Just crack that faucet when you rinse, okay?
For years, the more than 2,000 residents who live in the unincorporated community of Rio Verde foothills have been able to purchase water from their closest neighbor, the city of Scottsdale, known for world-class golf courses and oasis resorts. But at the beginning of this year, Scottsdale turned off the spigot to anyone outside city limits. And for the Rhymes, that means showering at their grandparents' house.
How much water do you have to last you right now?
We probably have about a week to 2 weeks.
A week to 2 weeks, and you have a family of 4 little kids.
6, and I haven't been doing any laundry at the house.
The city of Scottsdale says they have been warning non-residents about the cutoff for years, citing severe drought management plans, and say that this water from here on out is only for use within the city limits.
It's forced water haulers like John Hornier to drive hours looking for fill-ups at coin-operated fill stations.
When people call me saying that they really need water, I'm going to get them water. It's going to take me a while, but I'm going to get them water.
The Rhymes say their costs have more than tripled.
When you have to pay more for water than your mortgage is also crazy. And that's the situation we're in right now.
Experts say buyers need to beware when purchasing off-the-grid homes not hooked up to water.
Is this a cautionary tale?
It is absolutely a cautionary tale. You know, it isn't feasible to provide water to every single place in Arizona where someone wants to live.
If this continues through the summer, it's going to get dangerous.
The Rhymes say they are searching for sustainability in the desert, and it's something they think about every time they pass lush landscapes on their way back home, where water is always running out.
NBC's Gotti Schwartz joins us now from Scottsdale. Gotti, I understand a group of residents filed a lawsuit over this, so where does that stand?
Yeah, those residents have filed a lawsuit saying that the city of Scottsdale should still give them access to this water. And now the city of Scottsdale is saying that they can't comment on any of this because of pending litigation. But Zinkley, can I tell you the most head-scratching part of all this? It just happened a little while ago. We saw this truck come, right? And so the unincorporated area that we're talking about is just beyond this mountain that you see right here, right? So this truck rolls in to this filling station and it says Rio Verde. And we're like, wait, that's the community that we're talking about and they're not supposed to be filling up here. So we go and we talk to the truck driver. He's filling up water. He's using one of these spigots. These spigots are the ones that the city of Scottsdale has cut off. And he says, no, I'm servicing customers here in Scottsdale. And as it stands right now, if they're filling up for customers that live in Scottsdale, they can do that. And in fact, if it's a construction site, they can fill up all that water, take it to the construction site, and the construction site can literally like water the ground to make sure that no dust comes up. However, if they're wanting to deliver water to the community that is right over on the other side of that mountain, they have to drive an hour and a half that way. Then they have to have their pockets full of quarters, feed those meters for about an hour just to fill up that tank, and then they drive it all the way back another hour and a half, and that is just for one load. We're talking about hundreds of loads, hundreds of customers that live just beyond those mountains right there. Sinclair?
Oh, I mean, so many people affected. Thank you so much for keeping us posted on this. Gotti Schwartz. And overseas, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is calling on the West to speed up its weapons supplies amid heavy fighting across the country. The plea comes as the search and rescue efforts wrapped up today from the apartment block destroyed by a Russian missile attack over the weekend. At least 45 people were killed, including 6 children. And this attack comes as the head of a private Russian mercenary group declared victory in Soledar. NBC News foreign correspondent Matt Bradley takes a closer look at Moscow's power politics from the ruins of eastern Ukraine. And a warning, some scenes in this are disturbing.
Russia's assault on Soledar left this town broken. But it also broke into the open infighting in the Kremlin's upper ranks between an oligarch whose private army led Russia to victory and a military establishment that appears to want him sidelined. Military analyst said Yevgeny Prigozhin has turned eastern Ukraine into a vicious vanity project to advance his own political ambitions. 3 days before the Russian government claimed to have conquered Soledar, a claim Kyiv has denied, Prigozhin said he was in the salt mines under the city, boasting online that victory was his and his private armies alone, while roasting Russia's military, who he said hadn't helped. His mercenaries hoisted not Russia's flag, but the Wagner Group's own colors over this battered town. If Moscow's grateful for a rare victory, they had a funny way of showing it. Even as the battle raged in Soledar, Putin shuffled his top military ranks, demoting one of Prigozhin's allies. Do you think that this shakeup was an attempt to try to sideline Prigozhin?
The target is to neutralize Prigozhin, especially among the Russian population.
So who is this shadowy figure? A former convict, he restarted his career as a caterer to the Kremlin, known as Putin's chef. But soon he was leading a private army, doing Russia's dirty work in places like Syria, Libya, and Mali, where his soldiers have been accused of war crimes. But it was Ukraine that put him in the public eye. To lead the fight in Ukraine's east, he needed more men. He found them among Russia's most desperate, recruiting convicts direct from prisons with promises of pardons.
The first sin is desertion. No one goes back. No one backs down. No one surrenders.
Ukrainians call his style of fighting meat waves, sending wave after wave of poorly trained and equipped convicts straight into Ukrainian defenses. The self-promoting Prigozhin showcases every stage of his human meat grinder, addressing his mercenaries on the front lines, demanding even his amputee troops return to the front.
If another mine explodes, then the iron leg will be torn off and a new one will be welded.
To finally sending them home in body bags.
Their contract is over. They're going home.
But Ukrainian and American officials say these battles have little strategic value. The victory is for Prigozhin himself. Do you think that Prigozhin is doing all of this in Soledar and Bakhmut in order to further his own political ambitions?
I would say that's the case, in particular, strengthening his position in the apparatus that surrounds Putin.
Climbing the Kremlin's ranks over the corpses of his own soldiers. Matt Bradley, NBC News, Kyiv, Ukraine.
Our thanks to Matt Bradley for that illuminating report. Now, here in the U.S., some American brands evoke a certain level of nostalgia. Corvette owners will tell you that's exactly what makes their car so special. For decades, the iconic look of a Corvette has evolved while always staying true to its original concepts. And now it's going electric, at least partially. But what will that look like? And will it sound the same? Some are skeptical. NBC's Aaron Gilchrist takes us back 70 years to show us the evolution of America's original sports car.
The promise of tomorrow. This is the mood of the Motorama. A promise made explicit by customized cars, such as this Chevrolet Corvette.
The Motorama shows were these traveling auto shows where General Motors would take its product out to the world and kind of show them off. And really where the Corvette was born.
These cars embody principles of design and engineering that foretell future motoring.
I'm a little, speechless sitting in this car. Tell me a little bit about the Corvette. Where does this fit into our American history?
So the Corvette was the idea of Harley Earl.
The very favorable public acceptance of General Motors styling is made possible by the unique combination of policy, facilities, and personnel.
Harley Earl was General Motors' first vice president of design, and coming out of World War II, he had witnessed that a lot of young men and women were driving European and English sporty cars around, and he thought that he could find a way into that market by building a low-priced sporty car that would be America's first entry into that segment.
Chevrolet's plastic-bodied Corvette shows a strong sports car influence. When it goes into limited production, it will retail at $3,000.
I have 6.5 Corvettes. You know, it's like your children. You really can't have a favorite, but I revere them all for different reasons. And the 53, particularly because of it started it all. I have serial number 32 out of the 300 that were built. I take it out as much as I can, and I show it as much as I can. I really feel that the car needs to be out in the public and seen, given its history.
The original Corvette was powered by an inline 6-cylinder engine. It only put out 150 horsepower.
Well, as the car's evolved through all the years, it's maintained a certain styling aspect to it.
It's the sports car that every young person wanted through the 50s, 60s, 70s.
A Corvette is uniquely a Corvette, and it's a two-seat sports car, and it doesn't pretend to be anything else.
70 years ago today, the Corvette debuted at the General Motors Motorama show right here in New York City. So to celebrate, Chevrolet is introducing 2024 Corvette E-Ray. It's electrified.
On that actual day that the car was introduced in New York 70 years ago, we're introducing the first electrified C8, the E-Ray. So that's never happened in history for the Corvette.
What would a Corvette owner, 5 years ago know about this car?
What's familiar about it is it is very much in its DNA a Corvette. From the damper tuning, springs and stabilizer bars, to interior cockpit. Technically, it would be classified as a performance hybrid. This is a very, very specific high-end electrified vehicle where we're using two separate but integrated propulsion systems together in the same car.
So one of the big questions about an e-sports car is, does it still sound and feel like a sports car? Yeah, it does.
All right, so we're about to tackle New York City in the brand new Corvette E-Ray. Let's have a good time. You've got the 495 horsepower from the LT2 behind you, as well as the 160 horsepower electric assist up front, which nets you a 655 horsepower missile that's at your fingertips.
And that's one of the things that people have come to like about electric cars, right? Or electrified cars even, that you step on the gas and you're out like a bullet. There it is.
The one thing people, that are scared of electrified vehicles, they're scared of it because it's new, but it's great.
What has made this car stand out for so many years for so many people?
Yeah, it's such an iconic portfolio, and what I like from my perspective is this car is one of the best bang for your bucks, any Corvette, for going to the racetrack, truly seeing our cars driven hard and what they're intended to be.
In a 1963 fuel injection Corvette, 360 horsepower, all wrapped up in the neatest sports car package on the road today.
There has been a lot of attention and a big buzz about this car.
This car looks neat.
I think back to the beginning days of Corvette. If there weren't people at Chevrolet that loved that car so much, it probably wouldn't have made it 70 years.
We'll continue to admire these older ones because they had their place in history, and they turned heads, and they've always talked to young men like me when I was a kid, saying, "Boy, I hope someday I have one of those cars."
What do you think is next for the American sports car, for the Corvette?
What I hope is that we continue to honor the legacy of what's come before and push the technology and the performance forward, and make all of the folks that came before us proud of what we've accomplished.
Our thanks to our Aaron Gilchrist for taking us on that ride. And up next, headaches, nausea, vertigo, and even vision loss. These are some of the symptoms embedded spies and diplomats experienced with Havana syndrome. But a lot is still unknown about the illness. An investigative reporter set out to solve the mystery. He joins us next on his findings. Stay with us.
Havana syndrome. It's serious, it's widespread, and it poses real danger to American diplomats and intelligence officers around the world.
So the symptoms are sounding very much like the Havana syndrome symptoms.
One government official saying the incidents were so severe that some U.S. diplomats needed to get hearing aids.
200 Americans have now come forward to report possible symptoms of the mysterious illness called Havana syndrome.
Something really strange began happening to U.S. officials in 2016 while in Cuba to help facilitate a reconciliation effort between the two countries. Beginning under President Obama, a number of U.S. officials began falling mysteriously ill. They became dizzy and nauseous, suffered debilitating migraines, cognitive difficulties, memory loss, and described being hit by sound waves of pressure. Soon, there were similar reports in other parts of the world, with U.S. diplomats and intelligence officials being affected in Russia, Poland, Georgia, Taiwan, and Vienna. Initially, there was speculation that this was the result of an attack by some kind of sonic weapon from a foreign power. The CIA began looking into that matter and found that while it was unlikely another country was behind the attack, several incidents remained unexplained. Today, Vice Audio has launched a new podcast series digging into the so-called Havana syndrome, in which reporters John Lee and Adam Antois talk to a number of victims in an attempt to unravel the mystery. Here to discuss is one of the journalists behind the podcast, which launched today. Adam Antois is an investigative reporter for the New York Times. Thanks so much for being with us, Adam. So first off, tell us about the project, how you got involved, and what exactly you learned.
Right. So, this is a topic that I first got into when I was working at the New Yorker magazine. There was a mystery. I cover the spy agencies, and there was a great espionage story to be uncovered. What was going on in Havana, where these initial CIA officers were affected by this mystery illness, and trying to get to the bottom of what happened there.
And Adam, notably, CIA Director William Burns was interviewed by NBC's Andrea Mitchell at a security summit last year. This is what he said about Havana syndrome in July. Let's watch.
So 6 years later, do we know anything more about what caused these illnesses?
We don't assess that a foreign player, whether Russians or anyone else, is behind or is responsible for a sustained global campaign on the scale of what has been reported to harm U.S. personnel with a weapon or some kind of external device.
So given that you spoke with so many of the victims, did the victims you spoke with agree with that assessment that we just heard?
Well, I mean, I think it's a very sensitive issue for the victims, and what the clip you just played was a reference to an assessment that they take issue with. But you notice it's very carefully worded. He's talking about a sustained global campaign. Really, what we're talking about here in Havana and a few other locations, you had a group of individuals, most of them CIA officers, who described very similar incidents with sound and pressure that made them very, in some cases, extremely sick. And so, the way the assessment is written, it leaves room in there for individual cases in places where we originally saw it. But unquestionably, that assessment was hard for many of the people who had reported these sort of mystery occurrences. It was hard for them to hear that.
I'm sure. And I mean, Adam, we know the CIA is starting to compensate current and former officers who suffered these traumatic brain injuries. There are a dozen approved cases so far. So how is the government deciding who exactly gets these payments?
Honestly, I don't know how they're making those individual decisions. Obviously, they look and try to assess, who has been injured. Many of the injured have received treatment from certain doctors. Those doctors have issued a diagnosis in those cases, and that is part of the calculation in deciding who gets what, in the way the government is providing the assistance to them. Some of the people that I met with, they're still suffering from this, even though it's many years since they had their incidents.
And I think that's an important note to end on, right? This is something people are still dealing with. Adam, investigative reporter for the New York Times, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And the new investigative podcast from Vice World News on the so-called Havana Syndrome launched today and can be found wherever you get your podcasts. Next, saying farewell to an NBC News legend. When we come back, a look at Kerry Sanders' 32-year career and what's in store for his retirement.
Well, I think that there's going to be a happy ending here. We saw it get hit by a wave. We saw it turn back, and then eventually we lost sight of it, and it looks like it's made its way out into the Gulf of Mexico. For anybody who's wondering about my safety going in there, those are big waves. I live in Florida. We do have big waves, and right now there's no undertow, so I'm back just a little tired, but quite happy.
Here at NBC News, we know nothing can keep Kerry Sanders from getting the story, wherever it is. But tonight, Kerry is the story. The one-of-a-kind correspondent is retiring after more than 3 decades in the field. Here's NBC's Lester Holt with a look back at Kerry's unforgettable career.
The fighting has been fierce for 2 days.
The only thing left now are about 200 absentee ballots.
Really get a full idea of how widespread the damage is.
He's reported for NBC News for over 3 decades.
Kerry Sanders, NBC News, Port-au-Prince.
Nasiriyah, somewhere in the Australian outback.
Kerry Sanders on the ground, around the world, covering the big stories.
It's about 19 hours into the rescue, and it's remarkable. Each one has gone on without a hitch.
From breaking news.
I'm not exactly sure, but the officers started yelling, "Get down, get down."
To natural disasters.
Let me take you out the window here. This is the Dateline trailer park here, or it once was the Dateline trailer park. What you're looking at is what remains.
If there was a hurricane, chances are Kerry Sanders was there, the Florida-based correspondent, right in the thick of it. From nature's fury to human fury, Kerry embedded with U.S. Marines on the front lines of the war in Iraq in 2003.
It's a lot like a knife fight in a phone booth. It's just that difficult.
His work as a journalist often guided by his compassion, as we saw when he handed a wounded Marine a satellite phone to call home.
I'm okay. I got shot in the hand.
Sanders' incredible range and humanity always shining through.
When people call you a hero, what do you say?
Oh, we've done a job.
We know Hero.
We're in the Florida outback.
His tenacity, curiosity, and let's face it, sometimes kid-like enthusiasm for the story was hard to match.
I guess only somebody from Florida would be this silly to jump in, but we'll give it a shot.
How many of us can say we saved dolphins?
Don't be scared. I know. We're getting the tangles off you. Well, I think that there's going to be a happy ending here.
A master storyteller whose work often left us smiling.
I am going to get in position and join them, and then in a moment, we're going to release these turtles out into the wild.
And that's how we feel tonight, as we say a fond farewell to a reporter who always gave his all, taking us to new heights, and as always, leaving us wanting more.
Kerry Sanders, NBC News, Miami.
Kerry Sanders, we wish you the best. You set the bar so high. That does it for us. Thanks for ending your day right with Now Tonight. I'm Zincle Asamoah. The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.